This is the Get a Life podcast. Ex-Cult Conversations.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Get a Life podcast, Ex-Cult Conversations. I am Cheryl, and today joining as guests are Ben Woodbury and Cassie Davies. All three of us are ex-members of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church or Exclusive Brethren. Today we have a very special guest, Matthew, joining us from Sydney, Australia. Welcome, Matthew. Matthew just recently resigned from a PBCC business, and he's here to tell us about what that experience was like. But first of all, Matt, we just want to check in and see how you are doing since this just happened a few days ago. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic.
That's awesome.
Really good. Yeah, really good.
That's perfect. So I guess one of our very first questions we would like to know is what was the ultimate reason for you quitting your job with the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church?
Just a toxic, very toxic culture inside that business. It's horrible.
And were you aware of their religious affiliation when you were,
Yes.
or were you made aware of it when you first joined?
I was, yes.
And how did they describe that to you?
They just told me just that they were brethren. I wasn't aware of the brethren. I'd never heard of them before. And I was just told Christian, basically.
Yeah, so not necessarily how exclusive they were.
No. I wasn't told any of that stuff.
And when you first started working there in your earlier days, did you notice any red flags right off the bat, or was it something that kind of grew as the more time you spent there?
It grew. The longer I spent there, it grew. It was very good at the start. The business, it was really good at the start. The business had put in a new plant of which I'm an expert on, and they needed my expertise.
Yeah.
To start off with, and I brought a whole team on. So they were very nice to start off with. It was a very nice, a good period, say for the first 6 months or so.
And then what started happening?
Just lies and a lot of deceit. There was favoritism. There's a lot of staff were protected, should I say. Community members, a lot.
Like the PBCC members that work there were protected.
Correct. Extremely protected.
And that is a general feedback we do here, is that it's a very biased, to work as an outside community member, it's a very biased atmosphere, within there, biased towards members. Yeah, we do hear that a lot.
It's extremely biased.
Can you give us any examples of that?
So, one example, a gentleman that works there, I won't mention any names, was accused of taking photos up another young lady's skirt. A
community member?
Correct. And he was taking photos up a young girl's skirt. She was a PBCC member also. The young girl resigned, and the young gentleman remains in the business. Any other business, he'd be fine.
The other way around. Yeah.
Oh my God! But Matthew, this is not this. I haven't ever shared this story, but this happened with my sister. She came to me and showed me screenshots of a male brethren, married guy, grooming her. He even sent her a dick pic and asked her to meet her at the back. So she worked for my dad, and essentially he was off for 4 weeks, and my sister went back to work, and he ended up saying that, he appeared back at work, and my sister went to my dad and was like, "Why is he back here?" And he said, "Oh, he's a householder. You're not, so we're going to find you a job somewhere else." So
disgusting.
Totally discarded the victim's, plight, and went and put this known abuser, back into work, and she was, discarded. His own flesh and blood. So this is not an unfamiliar story.
Unbelievable. Yeah, so that young gentleman remains in the business today. There was nothing nothing happened. The young girl,
Of
she
course,
moved
it's
to another
protect the
business.
brand, right? Protect the brand.
Protect the
Yeah.
franchise. And you know what? This is how the sexual abuse happens in there, right? It's because these people get away with shit like this.
They're
And this
enabled.
is the first.
Small.
Yeah,
It
start
starts
small.
small.
And I mean, and that's not even small. Like I don't want
No.
anybody out there thinking that this is small, but in the Plymouth
No.
Brother Christian Church, it's small.
So we weren't supposed to know about that. That was very, there was a big secret. There just happened to be another non-community member, female that worked in the office, who the young girl confided in, and she told the rest of the guys outside in the warehouse, I guess.
That's sad.
It's so sad that it takes outside members that might not even walk the same Christian faith to stand up and go, this is not okay. And, the brethren pride themselves on being this testimony of, a peculiar people zealous for good works. They're anything but that. And this toxic male culture is so rife within every brethren business. And we're totally different areas and businesses. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
How long did you work there?
Still 2 years.
2 years. We worked there for 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Just on 2 years.
And did you ever witness any kinds of racism?
Oh, absolutely. I once wanted to hire another gentleman that had worked for me in another business, and he's from Sri Lanka.
Okay,
and I did mention that to my boss. I actually recorded this, and his reply was, "I don't hire Indians." And I said, "Excuse me?" He said,
He's
"No, I don't
not
hire
even Indian."
This is correct. This is what I replied to him with. He's not Indian. He's Sri Lankan. He said they're the same.
Oh, this is how uneducated they are. This is what happens when you're stuck in a cult. Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I said he's not Indian, and he just replied with that. They're the same. I don't hire Indians. And
Wow.
since then, there's been, to be fair, there is I think one Indian there, but that was early on, and that was the response that I got.
Well, the only reason he'd be there is because they desperately need his skills.
Yeah, correct. That was apparent. That became apparent to me about 12 months in. That's the only reason that I was there. They put in a new plant, and I was an expert on the plant, and they needed me. I also took a team of 13 guys with me, so they needed that. And then once I'd, got things sorted out for them, they were quite happy for me to move on.
I mean, with all of that, Jesus, that's a work cover case waiting to happen. You need to name and shame this business.
Were job advancements and salary treated fairly amongst everyone, or were PBCC community members treated differently?
I'm not sure.
Okay, you didn't know that. Yeah.
I'm not sure what the PBCC guys got paid. I do know I got paid extremely well.
Okay.
And I now understand. I wouldn't say extremely well. I did get paid well, but I have since spoken to other people that have worked in community businesses, and I believe that they pay overs for us because it's very hard to put up with their quirky. It's very different. It's not like working for a normal business.
You're allowed to say it's very hard to put up with their toxic environment.
Well, yeah, that's exactly the issue.
Yeah,
we did have other women work there, and this is one of the things that led. I sort of got to the point. It sort of got to boiling point a week or so ago, and the way that women are treated within their businesses is just absolutely disgusting. Just pathetic. There was I've seen.
And is that non-brethren and brethren members?
I think both, but I didn't. But more so the non-brethren women. Mm-hmm. There was two that worked there. So many times I've seen them crying, and there's sexist and unfair comments made towards them. And I'm a father. I have a daughter. That sort of got on my nerves after a while. I couldn't put up with it any longer. It's not cool.
Can you share what some of those comments are?
One of them, I won't mention her name. She was hired as to help out in the office, and she started to get involved in some other stuff outside in the warehouse, helping. And the comment was made. She was told that she was to clean and do the laundry because we had facilities there to wash clothes and whatnot. And she was told she was hired to cook because they used to cook for us on Fridays and clean. That's it. Don't worry about anything else. That's what you're here to do. And I thought that was super rude.
Wow.
Very sexist.
It is what the women there are for, though. That's what you're raised for.
This is how they treat women in the wider circle, right? Like my mum was just there to cook and clean, and you girls could vouch for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just, as a father, my daughter's 18. That's unbelievable. I would hate for somebody to treat her like that.
Yeah. Did you witness any forms of homophobia?
Oh, absolutely. Many times. Many times. On one occasion, I went into Sydney, the CBD, to look at a job with operations manager, actually, who is a community member, and it was last year during Mardi Gras, and there was all flags, Mardi Gras signs and flags throughout the city. And it really made him angry, and
I can imagine.
Yeah, he went on a rant, then bragging about. I think he did. He mentioned something about the schools, their one school, and how because it's part of the curriculum. I think these days here in Australia that that children are educated about this stuff. He told me that they went to court or something, and he was very, very proud of the fact that it's not part of their curriculum. They don't have to teach their children about that because it's not, not what they believe or whatever.
Yeah. The hypocrisy with all that is that whilst they, are a minority, a very small minority, they are the first to squeal and scream when somebody's discriminating against or has a question about their 16th century beliefs. But they are quite happy to attack any other minority, be that racial, be that sexual, be that a gender orientation. They're the first to squeal, though, when it's, anybody questions, their toxic community.
As a matter of fact, you were actually mentioned.
Of course,
to me, Ben. Yes, because I did ask an older gentleman there. I questioned him about what his thoughts were and what he knew about the ATO raids, because it was that was quite the topic of discussion the last few weeks on the warehouse floor.
You mean the audit, the standard audit?
Yeah, the standard audit.
The regular audit, the regular surprise audit.
Yeah, that was quite the topic of discussion. And I questioned one of the older gentlemen there about, or the oldest gentleman there about it. And he said, there's a lot of people trying to cause trouble for us at the moment. And he said, there's this Ben guy, excuse my wording here, Ben. He said, I think he called you a faggot. And
it doesn't surprise me.
And he just went on this whole rant about homosexuals and the trouble that is being caused for the community by a couple of. He mentioned some other fella too, that from New Zealand, I think.
The one that they chemically castrated. The one that they illegally chemically castrated.
Craig Hoyle, yeah.
He actually told me that. He actually told me that story and told me that he asked the doctor for that because he wanted to not be gay.
Yeah, because of course we didn't want to be gay. You taught us all our lives not to. We had to overcome the fact that we hated being gay. It was the biggest thing ever. you taught us all our lives that we were better off to die than to be gay. So of course we didn't want to. We knew the cost of it, losing our beloved family and friends. So of course we didn't want to be gay. But this sounds like a very uneducated, person, and probably the type of guy that would take a kid that reports, child sex abuse. That's the type of person that would be like, oh yeah, like that's, the girl that had a photo taken up her skirt. He'd be the type of guy that would be like, it's her problem. What did she do to ask for it? Ignorant, uneducated.
Yeah.
I know who Matthew is referring to right now. And this same person that he had a conversation with actually had another community member go and stay with him. And he did nothing about the sexual abuse that had gone on with her too. So
there you go.
Yeah,
so
it's just,
there you go.
Yeah, she had talked to him about it. I went and asked her. I did ask her the story, and he didn't do anything. And I think it was what she told me is that his lawyer had told him not to get involved in it, which that is your responsibility as a priest who's taking care of another person who's come from another country over to Australia to take care of. That's your job. That is your job as the new priest taking care of, is to report that kind of stuff. And he still didn't. So I wasn't surprised when you told me this story and that it was this guy who had called Ben and Craig Hoyle a faggot. Not surprised at all.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, these faggots, don't harbor abusers. We don't. And the sex that we have with other people is consensual. Have a think about that.
Crazy.
Yeah. What did you ever witness like alcohol at the workplace or people coming in drunk or hungover?
Every day. Definitely, absolutely. Every day. Alcohol is a very I actually
You mean they had alcohol there?
Oh, cupboards full.
Wow.
Cupboards full. We had one of the ladies that worked in the office, her job was to keep that sort of stuff stocked up, and she'd often tell some of my staff and myself, she'd just spent $5,000-6,000 on whiskey and gin and whatnot to fill the cupboards upstairs. And often on a Friday afternoon, you'd see members of the management team or the sales team strolling around with a glass of whiskey in their hands, like they're someone special. Very alcoholic culture.
Would they ever be drinking and then going on tools? No.
Would they drive home though, or did they have someone to drive them home?
Oh, they drive home. They brag about drink driving. It's, I myself, I sort of stopped drinking 12 months ago. Actually, just as I started that business, so maybe 2 years ago, sort of gone on this health journey. And they'd try and push it on me. We'd have work functions and, Matty, have a beer, or have a whiskey. And I remember one time I said I'd have one. I think it was the first Christmas party. All right, I'll have one. So I said it to one of the, my manager. And he went and poured me a whiskey, and when he brought it back, the whole glass was straight whiskey, and he just put the tiniest bit of ginger ale in it. I said, I'm not drinking that. He said, no, you'll be fine. Just use, the app Waze. It tells you where the police are. Just use Waze and you'll get home safe. We all use Waze. We never get pulled over. And I just said, no, I tipped it out in front of him. So I'm not drinking that. I'm going to drive. And the rest of them just, it's a very... From what I've seen, it seems as though it's a super alcoholic culture.
Very toxic, yeah. It's and this is the thing too, Maddie. Like you have this culture right at breaks or dinners or whatever they want to call them, where if you don't drink or somebody who doesn't, they push it on you like what you experience, but even more so to the point where you do just to shut them up. Like even to the women, like even I know some women that have spoken to me that they were the same, they never did. And it was the men that were like, oh, why don't you just have one? Maybe you'll loosen up a bit. Maybe you won't be so, up yourself. And like, it's a very, very toxic drinking culture.
Yeah.
And then look at the accidents that have happened.
That's what I was going to say. I wanted to. Did they talk? So these most recent accidents, I'm like, do you know about them? So they've had some pretty devastating accidents just recently. I was wondering if they had talked about it at all.
Not to me, no. I hadn't spoken about them. Actually, I did ask the old fella about them, and he said, I seen one in America.
Yeah, the one that killed that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I asked about that, and he just said he wasn't a community member. I said, okay. No,
yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
His dad wasn't, but he was.
Okay, I didn't go any further with that. I did ask him, and he just said, "Oh no, that wasn't a community member." I knew that it was.
Mm-hmm. And Clayton Hughes is what you're referring to, is the Clayton Hughes one, where there was. Yeah.
I just left it at that.
But this is classic brethren, right? They just wash their hands of anything they don't want badly attached, like anything that will affect their image. Oh, they're not part of us. You know what?
So
Clayton probably won't be for much longer. They'll just turf him out the door.
Yeah. So you were there just recently. So was this alcoholic culture still going when you left?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Friday before I left, one of the staff from upstairs in the office was walking around with a whiskey in his hand that afternoon.
Yeah. And so I just want to remind the listeners and viewers that there was just a very, very tragic accident that just happened. When was that, Cassie? Like just over a week ago?
Yeah, I think it was the 3rd of April.
Yeah. And so this drinking is still happening post that accident. So
we don't know whether that accident was
no, exactly.
To drinking.
No, exactly. But what I'm trying to get at is any kind of those accidents should shake them up inside there and clean up where they can clean up, right? Yeah, no, not at all am I insinuating that accident had alcohol related to it. Not at all. But I'm just saying that those accidents that do happen should make you look at your lifestyle. Yeah.
100%. And also, like I'm very open about having therapy, and I was talking to my therapist about it, and he said that it's a known thing in psychology that it's a form of self-harm. It's a form of self-harm where you have to drink to a point of, disassociation from your reality. And that is the case when you're in such a toxic environment. That is the cult, the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church.
Unbelievable. I never once heard them talk about their religious beliefs or like anything like that, ever. To me, it doesn't seem like a very religious organisation.
No, you're right, Matt. It's a business. They make money.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
So that's a pretty powerful statement coming from you, who's never been in it, that you never witnessed them being religious. But yeah,
what's that? And what's the testimony there?
Yeah, I was going to say that, Cassie. Like, they have this whole thing, Matthew, where they're like, "Oh, the testimony. You got to be a good image to the rest of the world."
Okay.
There's some feedback for you.
Yeah, what image did you get, Matt? What image did you get?
It's the ignorant alcoholic image, basically.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's sad. It's really sad because we've got family members that cannot see out of it, cannot see a world out of it. And it's so sad. Within the Brethren system, right, within that world, we were all from different tiers within, there's a distinct pecking order, like Animal Farm. All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. Did you notice that? Did that flow over into the business?
Yes, I did. You could tell, who was, they clearly treated people differently. And you could tell, that guy thinks he's better than that guy, that's another thing that actually blew me away. I don't understand why you're any better than me, or I'm any better than you. I don't get it.
Yeah. And did you ever hear the name Hales?
Oh yeah. Very early on, when we first started the manufacturing line and opened the warehouse, Dean, I believe, come through.
Okay.
And it was a big deal. Oh, Dean's coming, and everything's got to be perfect. And I made the comment, I don't give a shit. Who's Dean? He's nobody to me. Oh, yeah, he's very important to us. And It was a really big deal. He was a shareholder in that business at one point, I believe.
Of course, when they were profitable, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a super big deal that he was coming through. And it was sort of, I said, I don't care. He's, I don't know who this guy is. And they weren't too happy when I said that.
No, I can imagine. You're slandering their royal family.
Just that, yeah. But other than that, I didn't hear their name really. No, not too often, or if at all.
Yeah. No, fair.
Actually, it was explained to one of my colleagues. One of my colleagues asked the boss about Bruce. So he asked, "Who is he?" Because he's been in the papers and on social media a bit lately with the what are we calling them? Audits. And so my colleague asked the boss about him and who is he and whatnot. And the response was, he's like our Pope. He's like the Pope to us. That was the response that my colleague got about Bruce when he asked who he is.
They clearly aren't very in touch with the outside world. Like, they understand that's not actually a cool brag.
We actually had a laugh about that because, that is not cool.
Yeah. I mean, so he harbours kiddie fiddlers too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. One thing I should mention about working in a brethren business, I'm not sure if it's the same across the board, but they don't invest in their people. So I've been around a little now and managed different businesses and whatnot, and an important part of any business is putting something into your staff, or and further, I guess, educating your staff. There was no training or no education for the staff members or the non-brethren staff members there whatsoever. And often, there may be, I think, what's it called? UBT. Yeah, they might do like a seminar or something, and the brethren community staff would be a part of that and zoom in. But there was never any training or development for non-brethren staff at all. And it was very apparent. The brethren community, so the management in that business anyway, in the New South Wales branch, the Melbourne branch was very professional. In the New South Wales branch, people were just put in roles clearly because they're community members, not because they have the skills to perform that role.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that happens all over. Like, I had somebody in my shop actually recently saying to me they just quit, and 2 kids came out of school and were put immediately above them, and you could just tell that they were favoured community members and had no idea, no experience, no education. And what you say about education is so accurate, because they don't believe in education. They believe in sending the kids to school because they have to, giving them the basic education and then stopping it there. And like you say, they bragged about editing the curriculum and making it work for them. Well, it's the same thing. Like, they only want them to know what works for their bigger mold, their ecosystem, their cult. So they don't want them questioning anything. They don't foster critical thinking. They turn it inwards. They don't want you to critically analyze anything outside of yourself, because then that means you would question the cult, right? And then you wouldn't be there. That's why none of the kids, none of them have educations or accolades in terms of academics. Like, they don't go to university because then they don't want you to question what they tell you, So that's why you'll see that.
Unbelievable.
How did your exit out go? Like, did it go well, or did it get heated?
In the end, it seemed as though it was going to be quite heated, but it went well. It was quite, they were, look, I'd say it was fine. They were happy to see me go because they don't like people speaking out against them or pushing back.
Funny that.
They don't like people pushing back on them. Yeah, correct. I'm quite a strong personality. They don't like that at all. They just want you to say yes. Just go to work and do as you're told, basically, where I don't work like that. So they weren't very happy with that.
And I think they're going to find that very hard in the 21st century to find people that actually go to work. Like people go to work for what they believe in. You're at work, right? So you want to make sure you have the same values, ethics, morals. And they're finding it very hard. I know this like firsthand. They're finding it very hard to find people. That's why they have to offer such glossy pay packets to put up with that environment.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. And that's what I was saying earlier. The same thing. Yeah, I got paid well, and I now understand why. It's because they need to pay people well to put up with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
It was very hard working for them.
That's what I was going to ask next. I wanted to get into that. Is like, how did it impact your daily life working for them?
It's just frustrating. I've been doing this. I've been working in the same industry for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Just over 20 years now, and everything has to be done their way. It's not necessarily the right way, or it's not the right way at all. It's not the most efficient way. It's not. It's just but it's their way. That they're not receptive to any ideas. They don't take ideas from you. Everything must be their idea, and that's it. They don't want to hear. They don't want to hear it. It's just do as you're told, and we'll pay you basically.
Yeah.
And that's for someone like myself. It's very frustrating. Very frustrating.
There was obviously women community members working there. How did you notice how they were treated? Like, did you notice how they were treated while working there?
No, because I didn't work directly with them. A comment was made to me by one of the management, actually. They were young girls. When I say young girls, straight out of high school, basically, 18, 19. Much after they both moved on. They both left. Quite a while after, I was walking through the warehouse with my direct report, and there was a box, and it had one of the young girls' names on it. And he looked and he went, and sort of made a funny noise, and he said, and he said her name, and he goes, she was so, what did he say? He said, ditzy. What did you think of her? And I said, I thought she was a nice young girl. He said, she was only hired for her looks, and then sort of just left it at that. I said to him, that's disgusting. She's the age of my daughter.
Wow.
And he just didn't say anything after that. I said, I find that disgusting.
How old was he?
He was my age, 40.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised, right? You've got somebody there photographing up a girl's skirt and they make the girl leave. You know, she would have been made forced to resign.
Yeah.
And this is the culture that you're dealing with on a wider, community basis.
Them two are related, actually.
Even less surprising, unfortunately. Even less surprising. Yeah. That's unspeakable. Yeah.
Wow. I'm just trying to go back to other things that have had that when we've had other people come on and talk about workplace. What was the workplace safety like inside there?
Say for the first year and a half, it was almost non-existent. There was no talks of workplace safety at all. Just recently, in the last, I'd say 12 months, they've really started to have a major, and I say major focus on safety. But up until that, there was no cares about safety really.
Yeah. Yet they still drink. They still like have alcohol there and they drink. So this alcohol drinking happens while they are in their work hours, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. For a couple of them, yes.
Wow. And are those ones higher up on the ladder in the workplace?
Yeah. Actually, really only started focusing on the safety because there was an incident. Someone got hurt, and there was an investigation, which is why the major focus on safety.
Like an investigation with work cover or union?
Yeah, work cover.
Wow.
So
was any of the harassment, like the sexual harassment or anything like that, reported to work cover or reported to higher authorities?
I don't think so. No. Once I know in the when the guy was taking photos up the young girl's skirt, that was dealt with internally. Like I said, we're not supposed to know about this. Another female from the office told everybody, but the MD come to site, and he spoke to whoever was involved and dealt with it. They dealt with it internally. So us non-community members weren't supposed to know about that one.
Of course, yeah, right. Don't want to affect the image. So with that, how old was the person that took the photo? Like the guy?
Young. He's a young guy as well.
Yeah, okay.
20s.
And was he like higher up in the Brethren world? Is that why he was let off? I mean, it doesn't really matter because they're all let off essentially.
I'm not sure with that one. He was higher up. His family name was higher up in the business.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Well, his relatives were, so yeah. At the time, his uncle was my boss, so yeah.
Yeah, right.
And I believe a shareholder now, so I guess that did affect the outcome.
What did you notice around the workplace when they would have their meetings? So when they would be off on a Friday or off during the week, what was the preparation for that you would see from the inside there? And like, what did you witness when one of those things would take place?
Just a lot of excitement, basically, from them. And, there'd be a lot of talking. Now, I presume these meetings are of religious significance, but all that was ever spoken about was the copious amounts of alcohol that they'd be drinking with their guests from overseas.
Wow.
Cool brag.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is not the first time we've heard this, right? Like we get the same reports from clear across the entire globe. Everybody says the same thing.
And I was talking to somebody recently, like an academic, about this, and they're like, it's such a juvenile, undeveloped almost brain mentality to be like bragging and boasting about. Like it's something kids in high school do about sneaking alcohol, having so much alcohol, or, the car doing a burnout, sort of that schoolyard mentality. And I was like, oh my God, you're so correct. Like you see the way it sort of spills over and these people hold on to this. But
that's their only outlet.
Yeah, I guess.
I was about to say that. Looking like from the outside looking in, it's one of the only things they have. I can see now. Like they don't have anything else. I guess they're so oppressed.
Chat about.
Yeah. And they're not allowed to do anything else, really.
And I guess it's the same with the women's side of things. Like it's their house, their interiors. Like that's all they care about, the fussiness of the house, or at some points it's their outfits. Like they don't really have anything else. Like you said before, you didn't notice it as a evangelical Christian sort of religious group. It was more about
at all. Yeah,
at all. There you go.
And actually, I should mention, like with the alcohol, my boss, my original boss there, he'd always try to push alcohol on me, and I'd, do something well, I don't know, something well at work, and here, take a bottle of whiskey home. I have this. Take a bottle of whatever you want. Take this. And he'd often ask me. I'd come into work on a Monday, and we'd be chatting. And how was your weekend, Matt? Yeah, good. I had a good weekend. What did you get up to? I'd done a few things with the family. Did you get on the white powder? Did you have any drugs? I don't take drugs. I never have taken drugs. But they really judge people. Yeah. That's super unprofessional. I don't know why he would ask that. Why would presume? Maybe because I have some tattoos, or I don't know. But he would. That was, and it wasn't only just said to me. It was this particular thing has been said to several other people within the business from the same person. And he would ask, "Did you get on the white powder, or some drugs? Did you take something on the?" No, I didn't. I said to him, "I didn't even have a beer."
Maybe he wanted some. Maybe that's
but also they have this worldview that if you're not in the Brethren, this is standard for how you live your life. So they have this
100%.
worldview that if you're outside of the brethren, you must be doing all this crap to be like to survive.
Okay.
Like this is how you live your life.
Yeah, that's
The thing
so
is-
true, Cassie. That's their narrative, and they kind of like, you know, they need supporting evidence. He's got tats, drugs, like hand in hand, smokes. You know, like.
But if you leave, also that's the narrative they give you: is you'll end up on drugs and you'll end up on blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And sorry to disappoint you, but I've never had a drug in my life.
I've never touched that shit. The thing is that they have this drug problem inside there. I mean, that's a whole other podcast on its own that eventually will come out on it. Will come out. I mean, the drug problems that they have inside there is just insanity. Some of the insider stories that we get is just
alcohol's a drug.
Oh no, it's more than alcohol. We're talking
I actually said that to my manager at the time. I said, look, I've never taken drugs in my life with the exception of alcohol and cigarettes. I used to be a smoker, actually, when I started there, and that was extremely frowned upon. And I said, you take drugs, you drink every week and every night. And he just, alcohol's okay, and just sort of just played it off as if it was not a drug and nothing to worry about.
They do more than alcohol in there.
Yeah.
They do much more than alcohol in there. Yeah.
But I think what this really highlights is the narrative that the brethren have of the wider world, of ex-leavers, of people, you know, that might be of different colour skin. They're all in the same, you know, Sri Lankan, Indian, whatever. They're all in the same basket. Gays, the people that have tats. That it's a narrative, right, that's set out in your brain. And like even us as leavers, like I remember leaving and seeing somebody with tats. I'm covered in them now, but I'd be terrified because of the narrative. And used to have things like my dad used to always say to me, you're going to end up in the gutter pushing up drugs. Like you're going to end up in a caravan.
Yeah, wow.
And they don't. And today, like recently, I met up with somebody, a relative that left, and he was like, that what they were saying in there is that you're being paid by a very wealthy out person for every person you help leave. That's why you look like you're doing well. Like they can't have, they don't, like far be the thought that I am where I am on my own merit. You know, like it doesn't work in their narrative because you can't succeed out there. You're taught or you're lucky, you'll never succeed. And so for them, money equates to success. So for anybody to be doing well, no, it can't be on your own merit. And that's where that whole narrative of like comes from. But that's why they probably were asking you about whether you took drugs because you had tats. Like, or you're an outsider, you're a worldly, so you do drugs.
That's what I presumed. And one of the other gentlemen that was asked the same thing, he's covered in tattoos too. So
there you go.
More so than myself, he's covered. So yeah.
But we know as ex-members, like that's what you thought in there. I thought people with tats smoked or did drugs or were bikie gangs. You know,
definitely part of a gang. Definitely part of a gang. Yeah. Yeah.
You just triggered on the racism thing that was asked earlier. I think not last week, the week before, I'd asked this older gentleman again. I can't remember what made me ask the question. Oh, yeah. Anyway, about interracial marriage. He said, I can't remember how it came up. I didn't ask. It came up in some way, and he said to me, "We do not believe in that." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "We don't believe in blacks marrying whites." I said, "That's disgusting." I said, "You guys have a presence in Jamaica, I believe, also. I think Jamaica and somewhere else."
Yeah.
They told me. And he said, "Yeah, we do, but we don't believe in, or we don't condone or whatever the wording was he used. I can't exactly remember."
And do you know why, Matthew? Like, I've done a bit of investigation as to why, because I get asked this on my TikTok all the time. Like, why don't they have interracial? Why is it such a predominantly white community? And I found, like, I've asked a lot of ex-members that have left, and like the general consensus is, and older people, that one of the great men said it isn't comely. And like looking up the reference to that, I found it where it says that. And what it means is it's not pleasant to look at. I'm like, whole, like you unpack that, there's a whole, a whole generation now of people believing this in you know, a modern 21st century where it's not even thought of, and you've got people saying it's not pleasant to look at. It's
Wow.
just it's infuriating because you've got these people that are the first to cry out, racial or religious discrimination when you question their prehistoric medieval beliefs, and yet they're the first to tell you why we don't have black and white marriage, why gays aren't allowed, why we chemically castrate people that think about wanking. They're the first. Why women don't work, why women aren't educated, why men aren't educated. They're the first to lay down these rules, yet the first to squeal.
It's unbelievable. How do them people in the black brethren communities feel about that? I guess
It's a tiny. I only know 2 or 3 families, girls. What do you? There's not very many. There's not a big.
Very few. And I just wonder, I mean, I feel devastated that comment from your boss that they don't employ Indians. There are brethren that are Indians. There are brethren that moved.
There was just
brethren that moved
video
out
that was put out.
Yeah, Cassie, he is so uneducated, that guy, and so ignorant. He wouldn't even know that was where they were from. They don't step outside of their country. They're not allowed to travel overseas without permission, let alone know where India is. He probably doesn't even. He probably went to year 10. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't.
But how would they feel about that? I mean, hearing that is just devastating.
Well, you know how they were treated all their lives. I know.
Yeah, they were treated terribly, and then they had to move out. Yeah. And they had to all abandon India. It was terrible.
But on the same token, I remember a local priest. He was my priest. We saw somewhat we saw there was a couple that was, she was slightly coloured and he was white, and they were both South African. They were married, and his comment was that, they've got trouble because they didn't follow the rules. Suggesting that because they got married, and interracial marriage is why they've got problems. And he said that right to me, and I was just like, oh. And I was on the cusp of leaving, so I was like, oh, this is, if I need, that's my 7th reason,
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy.
So, I mean, I guess you were saying earlier that you weren't really around the young women. I just wanted to know if they had ever talked about wanting to get married, or if they wanted to do anything else with their life, or if there was dreams that they couldn't get to, or if they had talked to any of the other female non-community members.
No, I believe they talked to another one of my colleagues, and he'd asked them, what are you going to do? Are you going to stay here, or what would you like to do with your life? And her response was, or one of their responses was, oh no, once I get married, I'm not allowed to work. Once I'm married, I've got to stay home and have kids and whatever.
Yeah,
but I won't be working.
Yeah,
and that as a father, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Were
there any did you notice of any people young rebellious kids wanting to leave? I talked to the people that I used to work with that were non-brethren. They're like, we always knew you wanted to leave. You were always so inquisitive about the outside world. Did you notice that?
None of the guys that worked with me, no.
Yeah.
Not at all. They were all
interactions. And were interactions with the women very discouraged? Was there a clear sort of separation from having much to do with the women?
The brethren girls, yes, they were basically just kept in the office. They didn't really have too much to do with anybody else outside.
What about the eating and separation thing? Did they drink with you guys? Did they eat with you guys? You talked about a Christmas party. How did that go?
I will say on that, they're very good in that regard. We would eat. The business would do lunch for us on Fridays, and they would eat with us.
They ate with you?
What?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to understand the family name and the family dynamic behind all of that. They could get away with that, and probably because they're Sydney-based, or Melbourne-based, and they're higher up in the brethren tiers, they could get away with that. There were brethrens that threw Christmas parties on yachts and boats for their works, and my cousin, where he used to work, he used to send me a Christmas party photo, and you got brethren, non-brethren on a Christmas party boat. Whereas I snuck into my colleague's house for lunch one day and got caught, and got nearly excommunicated over it. So it does depend on family names. And
so then we should just reiterate that who Matthew worked with had a little bit of pull and hierarchy and within the PBCC. Yeah.
Yeah, so they would do lunch on a Friday and eat with us. Some of them would, and then we'd have early on we would have team bonding sessions once every 3 months. They're stocked, but they drink. They definitely would drink with us. They didn't worry about drinking with us. That was for sure. Yeah.
Did you ever see breathalyzers hanging around? Would they ever use a breathalyzer before?
Absolutely. Definitely.
I don't even know what to say. It makes me just sad.
Yeah. But like Cassie, Cheryl, are you surprised by any of this? Like, no.
I'm not. It just, it hurts. It hurts. It's just sad. It's sad because
it's another cookie cutter place work environment.
Yeah.
Like these stories aren't unfamiliar, and that's the sad part.
Yeah, and I think I feel sad that it's actually deteriorated so much since I was in there. Like I've been gone 20 years nearly, and it certainly wasn't that bad when like the alcohol in workplaces was not as
I know that wasn't back then
now
either.
And I feel like the deterioration around that is just tragic. It's so bad.
But is that legal? Like I know for where I am, you would have to have, you couldn't have, like, you'd have to have, I guess that's when you're selling it, I guess, though.
No,
like,
but
is
you
it
still
legal?
have to have an RSA. Like, you'd still have to have an RSA, like a responsible.
Not if they're all serving themselves, though.
Oh, true.
It's only if you're serving it.
Yeah, I guess or if you're charging for it, you'd have to have a license.
But I mean, they would be.
The illegal part is driving, and there's great work ethics, right?
Yeah.
But I don't. Back to your comment, Cassie, about it deteriorating. I don't know, or is it we're just more aware now because everybody's telling the stories, like everybody's coming forward and sharing their stories?
No, I think it's deteriorated because I certainly I worked in a brethren business that's actually now one of the most profitable, and we didn't have alcohol in the workplace.
Oh no, yeah, I see what you mean. The alcohol part. I thought you were talking about.
Yeah,
like, the whole,
I'm just talking about the alcohol part.
Yeah.
No, that was all there. That was all there, very much so. I mean, I remember being admonished many times because we'd speak to one of the guys, one of the non-brethren community fellas in the workshop. If we ever we'd be like trying to have a small little bit of a conversation at the odd chance that we got, and within seconds, within minutes, the boss would be right there, and haven't you got work to do, or dad be
Yeah, I do think it's depending on what family. Like I left 8 years ago, and I worked for 5 years prior to that for Lester Martin, and there was not like that was a workplace that should have been able to get away with a lot, and they did in terms of homophobia and sexism and ageism, but they never ever, like, I don't ever remember having a drink at work, probably because I was more too scared to, but there was never any alcohol. Like, I think it's definitely the more bullier sort of bogan type businesses, like, and you'll probably see that when you figure out who they are or whatever, but
let's talk about bullying. Did you see it? I mean, I know we've kind of touched on it here and there, but I just want to actually ask you outright, did you witness any bullying?
On some of the women that work there, yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you ever work for a PBCC company again?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Has it left you with any sort of like triggering or trauma like since? I know you've only just recently quit, but a lot of people that have worked there before have said this to me, that they're like for a while it's taken them a bit to like not look over their shoulder or be like Big Brother is watching.
No, because they look if everything was done their way, I guess I didn't have really any say in too much, so they didn't really. And if you just done it, they left you alone to do it. They weren't so much watching all the time, and
and I guess I'm hearing that more from women anyway rather than men.
Okay, so, yeah, the women that were there were bullied, definitely.
Did you ever witness any illegal things happening? I'm trying
in
to.
terms of business, like say somebody, illegally setting up or fraud, like purchasing fraud or a buying fraud or or were you not in that
Or
area?
bragging about evading some sort of. I mean, we've had other people reveal stuff to us where they clearly were forging things. Like, did you ever come across, or any of your colleagues come across, anything that was shady?
Yeah, like the business that I worked in bought us a bottle of alcohol every year for your birthday, or anniversary, work anniversary, depending on how many years you'd been there, and whatnot. And one of the guys, he told me because he didn't drink, so he asked the question of, so it's the women that work in the office, their job to get the gifts, the alcohol, the chocolates, or whatever. And he asked her, "Oh, could I just get a gift voucher or some money because I don't drink? So, I'm allowed to have a bottle of whatever to the value of, I think it was $100. Could I just have the $100?" And she said, "I'll ask the owner, the boss." And she asked, and the response was, "No, because I can't claim cash on tax or money on tax, but the alcohol I can."
Is that right,
I think-
though? Can you claim alcohol purchase on
It's a
tax?
gift.
It's a
As
gift.
a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Oh,
but it speaks volumes of the toxic environment of a work culture. You value the
You
$5
value the write-off more than you value the
you
employee.
value the $10 you're getting back on tax over the
Correct. And now
overall
that's-
work ethics of your colleague or your staff. Come on,
that's
it's
not
$10.
that's not unusual. That's not unusual. I have worked in non-community businesses that do the same thing, and we'll
Yeah.
write it off. But to tell the guy, so actually the response was no, because I can't write it off on tax. Yeah. To tell him that and not give him the money is like, what's $100 to a business that's turning over, a few million a month?
I wonder.
But also, he's getting back $10. Like if you're spending $100,
yeah.
the GST you're claiming on that is $10, and that's what you're fighting over. Come on.
Yeah, I wonder if he'd asked for $90 instead, whether he still said no.
Can I just have $90 cash?
Yeah. But that's all that I sort of seen.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Like P&L statements, like any of that stuff, anything financial is strictly brethren's. Nobody, I didn't know my cost for the production line that I run or nothing, which is crazy. I constantly complain that I don't know my cost. Like, how can I run this efficiently? Blah, blah, blah. And was just, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Nobody's involved in any of that.
Yeah. That makes sense. Like in the work environments that I've experienced, it was the same thing. There was a non-brethren, like non-community member accountant, but I remember there was frustrations there as well in accessibility and things like that. So yeah, it's very, yeah.
And did that make your job hard to do by not having that information?
In any other business, it would, because I would have had to do reporting and there would have been questions asked had I spent too much on, something, but there was never any complaints. So it didn't really make the job too hard.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing said about it. And if there was, I'd say, look, I don't know what my costs are. Okay. And it was just left alone. And yeah, it was fine.
Yeah. What would you say to those non-community members that are still struggling and suffering working for a PBCC business that are tied into the money they make?
Oh, see, that's... I don't know. Just get out. I don't know. Because it's the hard thing, right? Especially nowadays, the cost of living is so expensive. And that extra money helps. And
yeah,
I really don't.
Would you say that you paid a price for getting that extra money? Like, did it like, Did you suffer?
It was just very frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a less strong personality would suffer, I guess.
Yeah.
And it would bother them. But for me, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't come on here and bring people who have worked for PBCC businesses for nothing, right?
Yeah.
There's this kind of stuff happens in workplaces all over the world, right? We have all this kind of stuff. The thing is that it's the sexual abuse stuff that happens. It's the racism. It's the homophobia. It is all those things that in a normal business, when that has been brought to it, it would be dealt with right away and you wouldn't see it again. So just like they had that work safety issue and then it was dealt with, and then there was work safety things put in place. That's what needs to happen when it comes to all the other issues that are brought up in a PBCC business. And I bring these people, I like to bring people like you on because it is important. They have this facade and this face that they show the world. Yet we have so many people that drop comments in our podcast, on our social media that have had so much trauma by just working for them as non-community members. And it is sad. I've been talking to somebody else that's been working for a PBCC company who it's just horrendous, some of the things that you hear. So I don't do this to just, oh yeah, well, everybody's workplace has this. I do this because these are people who are saying that they are highly compassionate Christian people who are running these very successful businesses. Well, they're very toxic businesses. They're very toxic businesses.
And I did make that comment to our human resources manager on my exit. I had a phone catch up with him because I said to them, look, I'll have a few days to think about it and then we'll catch up on the phone. I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'd rather do a meeting here and have our ops manager, my boss, present. And I said, listen, he can be present on the phone. I'm not coming. Once I leave this business today, I will not return.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, no problem. And in that, and then he called me the day before. And he said, I'm just making sure you're right for the meeting tomorrow morning. And I said, yep, I am. And then I had a discussion with him about the toxic culture. Now, he's a non-community member. Yeah. And I said to him, I explained the culture and exactly how toxic it was. And I said, I'd like my boss to be present tomorrow because I want to bring this stuff up because he's involved in a lot of it and he breeds this culture. And I was told by the human resources manager, Matt, I think you're taking the meeting tomorrow in a different direction. This is about your resignation. And I'd rather not hear about the other accusations. I said, I have some examples from current staff members that I'd like to bring to the table tomorrow. He said, no, I don't want to talk about that. If you want to address these issues, you can email me separately and I'll have a look at your email.
Wow.
Yeah, because he knows that he, as a non-Brethren member, will then have to say something or do something about it, and he'll be held accountable. And he doesn't want to be held accountable in front of these people because he knows what the outcome is. There's no response. There's no outcome from it, right? There's like what the guy that took a photo up a girl's skirt, what he slapped on the wrist with a fucking wet noodle. Like,
and I mentioned that one too. I literally mentioned that to him because he's the human resources manager. I said to him, everybody knows about this incident and this, and he didn't want a bar of it. He just said, send it to me in an email. The meeting tomorrow is not to discuss these issues, Matt.
Please put it in writing. Please put it in writing.
Yeah, but the thing is, Cassie, if he's going to forward it to them, he would never forward it to them. It means discussion. It means being held accountable. It means he has to do something about it, right? So
yeah, but he's received it.
Yeah, but who's holding that to account? Like he's not audited. That's where it needs people like yourself, Matt, to come forward and speak up like this for them to be held accountable. Mm-hmm. And I guess it's the purpose of Cheryl's podcast. It's great. Thank you, Cheryl.
Yeah,
thank you, Matt.
I really appreciate you coming on, Matt. Was there anything else that you wanted to discuss?
I don't think so. If I have anything else, I can email you or something, Cheryl. I think
email us. We will do something about the email, though.
Yeah, yeah.
Since the recording of this podcast, Matthew sent a note regarding an important thing that was said amongst multiple PBCC members at work, with their wish that all ex-members never existed. He was shocked at these comments and what they implied with it. Well, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences. I invite anybody who has worked for the PBCC to email us at info.getalife@proton.me. And we will do just exactly what Matthew has done here. If you don't want to show your face or reveal names and business names, we're fine with that. I do think that this is also a movement that needs to be started up again. We had Christine back on podcast. It was at the very beginning. Can't remember what podcast it was, but anyhow, we had Christine on way back at the beginning of our podcast, and we've had tons of people reach out and talk to us. So I think it's important. I think it's important that people like you, Matthew, come on and we hold these people accountable, especially for the alcoholic endeavors that they take on inside these businesses. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt. Amazing.
Okay. Until next time, everyone. Much love to you all. Bye-bye. How can you support Get a Life podcast? You can donate internationally via PayPal at www.paypal.me/getalifepodcast. PayPal also has a QR code that can be scanned. Or donate to our Get a Life podcast GoFundMe. If you're in a high-demand religious group and need help, please go to oliveleaf.network. To share your story or be a guest on the show, email info.getalife@proton.me. Check out www.get-a-life.net for Get a Life merchandise, books, and ways to support or get support. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to Get a Life, and comment.